The warships appeared in Earth's sky on a cold morning in March. There were hundreds of them, each one larger than any building humans had ever made. They blocked out the sun and cast shadows over entire cities. People around the world stopped what they were doing and looked up. Some screamed. Some prayed. Most just stood there, unable to believe what they were seeing. Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked down at the blue planet below. His scales were the color of burnt copper, and his eyes were cold like ice. He had conquered more than 40 worlds in his long career. He had crushed armies, destroyed civilizations, and brought countless species to their knees. This small planet would be no different. "Begin the invasion," he ordered. His voice was calm, almost bored. The Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. They were tall, powerful creatures covered in thick scales that could stop most weapons. Their technology was advanced beyond anything humans had ever imagined. They had never lost a war. They did not expect to lose this one. 50,000 shock troops loaded into drop ships. These were the best soldiers in the Empire. Each one stood over 2 meters tall. Each one had been trained since birth to fight and kill. They carried plasma rifles that could burn through steel and war armor that could survive explosions. The first wave landed on a small peninsula in East Asia. The commanders had chosen this location because their scans showed it was not heavily defended. There were mountains, forests, and a strange line that divided the land into 2 parts. The aliens did not understand what this line meant. They did not care. What the scans did not show was what was hiding in those mountains. Captain was eating breakfast when the alarm came. He was a small man by standards, standing only 175 centimeters tall. But in the world of Korean special forces, size meant nothing. Skill meant everything, and had more skill than almost anyone alive. He had served in the 707th Special Mission Group for 15 years. He had trained in jungles, deserts, and frozen wastelands. He had completed missions that were still classified at the highest levels. He had killed men in ways that left no trace and no witness. Now, watching alien ships descend from the sky, he felt something strange. Not fear, not panic, just a cold, quiet focus that settled over him like a familiar blanket. "All units," he spoke into his radio. His voice did not shake. "We have visitors. Everyone knows their positions. Move now." Within minutes, hundreds of Korean Special Forces operators vanished into the mountains. They moved like ghosts, leaving no footprints, making no sound. They had trained for this terrain their entire lives. Every rock, every tree, every shadow was a weapon they knew how to use. The troops landed in an open field. They formed into perfect lines just as they had been trained. Their commander, a young officer named, looked around at the quiet landscape. There were no human soldiers visible, no vehicles, no defenses. "This will be easy," he said to his troops. "These creatures are primitive. We will crush them before nightfall." He was wrong. The first died without ever seeing his killer. A single bullet, fired from over a kilometer away, passed through a tiny gap in his armor and entered his brain. He dropped to the ground without making a sound. The second and third died the same way, then the fourth, then the fifth. By the time they realized they were under attack, 30 of them were already dead. "Contact, contact," screamed into his communicator. "Where are they? I cannot see them." No one could see them. The Korean snipers were hidden in positions they had prepared years ago during training exercises that everyone thought were just practice. They fired, moved, and fired again. Each shot was perfect. Each shot killed. They tried to fight back. They fired their plasma rifles at the mountains, burning trees and melting rocks, but they were shooting at nothing. The humans were already gone, moving to new positions through tunnels and paths that did not appear on any map. As night fell, things got worse for the aliens. Sergeant led a team of 12 operators through the darkness. She was 34 years old and had been serving in special forces for 10 years. She was small, quiet and absolutely deadly. Her team moved without flashlights, without noise, without any sign that they existed at all. They found a patrol of 50 soldiers making camp in a valley. The aliens had set up lights and were eating their rations. They felt safe. They had superior numbers and superior weapons. Watched them for 20 minutes, studying their positions, counting their weapons, planning her attack. Then she gave a signal that made no sound at all. Her team struck from 6 different directions at once. They used knives instead of guns. Silence was more important than speed. The first 10 died before anyone knew what was happening. The next 10 died while trying to grab their weapons. The rest died running. Not a single human was injured. By morning, Commander received the casualty report on his flagship. He read it 3 times because he could not believe what he was seeing. 3,000 soldiers dead, 0 confirmed enemy kills, 0 enemy soldiers even seen. "This is impossible," he said. His voice was no longer bored. There was something else in it now, something that might have been the beginning of fear. He called for reinforcements, another 50,000 troops, heavier weapons, more ships. But down on the surface, Captain was already planning his next move. He sat in a hidden bunker deep inside a mountain, surrounded by maps and communication equipment. Officers from other Special Forces units were arriving every hour. Americans, British, Australians, Israelis, the best soldiers from every country on Earth. They all knew the same truth. The aliens were stronger. The aliens had better weapons. The aliens had more soldiers. But the aliens did not know how to fight an enemy they could not see. Looked at the faces around him. These were men and women who had dedicated their lives to becoming invisible, to striking from shadows, to winning battles that were supposed to be impossible. "They came here thinking we were weak," he said quietly. "They thought we would surrender or die. They were wrong." He stood up and pointed at the map showing positions. "Now we teach them what happens when you invade our home." Outside in the mountains and forests of Korea, thousands of Special Forces operators waited in the darkness. They did not speak. They did not move. They simply watched and waited for their orders. They had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never faced anything like this. They had never faced humanity's most lethal soldiers. And they were about to learn why that was a terrible mistake. 2 weeks passed after the first landing. The Empire had sent 100,000 of its best soldiers to Earth. They had ships that could destroy cities. They had weapons that could burn through any armor. They had technology that humans could barely understand. And they were losing. Commander stood in his command center aboard the flagship, staring at holographic maps that showed nothing but failure. Every advance his troops made was stopped. Every camp they built was attacked in the night. Every patrol they sent out came back smaller than when it left. Sometimes the patrols did not come back at all. "How is this possible?" he asked his officers. None of them had an answer. On the surface below, Lieutenant Park was crawling through mud in complete darkness. She had been moving for 6 hours without rest. Her body was tired, but her mind was sharp. She had a mission to complete. Was 29 years old. She had joined the military at 18 and passed the Special Forces selection at 22. Out of 300 candidates that year, only 11 made it through. She was the only woman. The instructors had pushed her harder than anyone else, expecting her to quit. She never did. Now she led a reconnaissance team of 8 operators deep behind enemy lines. They had been moving through controlled territory for 5 days. They ate cold food because fires would give away their position. They slept in shifts, never more than 2 hours at a time. They spoke only in hand signals. Their target was a communications base. Intelligence believed it was the center of all alien communications in the region. If they could capture it, they could learn how the enemy talked to each other. They could learn their plans, their weaknesses, their fears. The base was guarded by 300 soldiers, had 8 people. "We do not need to kill them all," she whispered to her team. "We just need one prisoner who can tell us what we need to know." They watched the base for 2 days, learning the patrol patterns, identifying the weak points, finding the one moment when security was lowest. It came at dawn, when the night guards were tired and the day guards were not yet fully awake. Moved first, she crossed 50 meters of open ground in complete silence, staying in the shadows, using every bit of cover the land provided. A guard stood just 10 meters away. He was looking at the sky, probably thinking about home. He never saw her coming. She was on him before he could make a sound. Her knife found the gap in his armor where the neck met the shoulder. He dropped without a cry. She caught his body and lowered it gently to the ground. Her team followed, each one taking a different path, each one eliminating guards with the same silent efficiency. Within 5 minutes, they had created a hole in the base's defenses. Inside, they found what they were looking for. An officer sat alone in a communications room, monitoring screens filled with alien writing. He was smaller than the soldiers outside, probably because he was not a fighter. He was a thinker, a planner. He would know things. Appeared behind him like a ghost. Before he could react, she had a knife at his throat and a hand over his mouth. "Do not move," she said in the alien language she had spent the last 2 weeks learning from captured recordings. "Do not speak, you will come with us. If you cooperate, you will live. If you do not, you will die here. Choose." The officer chose to live. Getting out was harder than getting in. The base had discovered the missing guards and alarms were sounding everywhere. His team moved fast, carrying their prisoner between them, fighting only when they had no other choice. They killed 11 during the escape. Not one of them managed to fire their weapon in time. 3 days later, delivered the prisoner to General O at the underground command center. The general was a small woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. She had been about to retire before the invasion. Now she commanded the largest special operations force in human history. "What did you learn?" she asked. The interrogation had revealed everything. They had never faced an enemy like humans before. Every species they had conquered fought in traditional ways. Big armies, open battles, clear front lines. Humans were different. "They do not have special forces," reported. "Not like ours. They have elite soldiers, yes. Bigger, stronger, better equipped than regular troops. But they do not have units trained to fight the way we fight. They do not understand unconventional warfare. They do not know how to handle an enemy they cannot see." General O smiled for the first time in weeks. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had just discovered her prey had a weakness. "Then we will teach them," she said. The plan she developed was called Operation Ghost Protocol. Its goal was simple: make the afraid, not just cautious, not just careful, truly deeply afraid. Special Forces teams were sent to every position on the peninsula. They did not attack, not at first. Instead, they watched. They learned the names of officers. They studied the habits of guards. They mapped every building, every vehicle, every weapon. Then they started leaving signs. A commander woke up one morning to find a human military patch on his pillow. His quarters had been guarded all night. No one had seen anyone enter or leave. Another officer found that his personal weapon had been disassembled and reassembled while he slept. Every piece was in perfect condition, but someone had been in his room, standing over him, and he had never known. Messages appeared on walls inside bases. Simple words in the alien language. "We see you. We could have killed you. Sleep well." The psychological effect was devastating. Soldiers who had never known fear began to panic at shadows. Guards who had stood firm against charging armies now jumped at every sound. Officers who had conquered worlds began requesting transfers away from Earth. Sergeant Major Han was 47 years old, the oldest operator in the field. He had been doing this work for 25 years. He had trained half the Special Forces soldiers currently fighting the invasion. Now he led a team that specialized in what they called presence operations. They never killed anyone. They just reminded the enemy every single day that humans could reach them anywhere. "Fear is a weapon," he told his younger team members. "A bullet kills one enemy. Fear can break an entire army." He was right. Within a month, morale had collapsed. Soldiers refused to go on patrol alone. Officers slept in groups, weapons in hand. The mighty army that had conquered 200 worlds was becoming a collection of frightened creatures jumping at shadows. Commander watched it all from his flagship with growing horror. He had never seen anything like this. He had never even imagined it. "What are these humans?" he whispered to himself. "What kind of creatures fight like this?" He did not know the answer, but he was starting to understand something important. He had made a terrible mistake coming to this planet. And now it might be too late to fix it. 6 months had passed since the Empire first arrived on Earth. In all their history, no conquest had ever taken this long. Most planets fell within days. The strongest had lasted perhaps a month. Earth was supposed to be easy. Earth was supposed to be quick. Earth was becoming a nightmare. The High Council held an emergency meeting on their home world, thousands of light years away. The 5 most powerful leaders in the Empire sat around a table made of black stone, watching footage from the invasion. What they saw made their blood run cold. The footage showed a base at night. Everything was quiet. Guards stood at their posts. Soldiers slept in their barracks. Then, without warning, lights went out across the entire base. When they came back on 3 seconds later, 20 soldiers were dead. No one had seen anything. No one had heard anything. There were just bodies on the ground and blood on the walls. "What are we fighting?" asked High Commander, the oldest member of the council. He had led the Empire's military for 60 years. He had never lost a major battle. Admiral, who had been sent to Earth to replace the failing commanders, appeared on the screen. He looked tired, more than tired. He looked haunted. "They call themselves Special Forces," explained. His voice was thin and weak. "They are not like regular human soldiers. They are trained from a young age to do one thing: kill without being seen. They can survive for weeks in the wild with almost no supplies. They can move through our most secure facilities without triggering a single alarm. They can kill a soldier and disappear before his body hits the ground." The council members looked at each other. This did not make sense. They were physically superior to humans in every way. They were taller, stronger, faster. Their scales were natural armor. Their eyes could see in the dark. None of that seemed to matter. On Earth, Master Sergeant was training a new group of international volunteers. Soldiers from every corner of the planet had come to fight. Americans, Germans, Japanese, Brazilians, Nigerians. They all wanted to learn how to become ghosts. "The first rule," told them, standing in a hidden training camp deep in the mountains, "is that you are already dead. Accept this. Once you accept that you are dead, fear cannot control you. You will do what needs to be done." She demonstrated the techniques that had made Korean special forces famous: how to move without sound, how to hide in plain sight, how to kill quickly and quietly, how to disappear after the kill. "The aliens are bigger than us," she said. "They are stronger than us. They have better weapons, but they have one weakness we can exploit." She tapped the side of her head. "Their minds. They have never faced an enemy like us. They do not know how to fight something they cannot see. Every night we survive, every attack we make, every soldier we kill without losing one of our own, we plant fear deeper in their minds. Fear is our greatest weapon, and we will use it until they break." Colonel Shin had lost his entire family in the first week of the invasion. His wife, his 2 daughters, his parents. They had bombed Seoul without warning, killing millions before the humans even knew they were under attack. He did not hate the aliens. Hate was too hot, too wild, too difficult to control. What he felt was something colder, something patient, something that would not stop until every had left his planet or died on it. He planned the operation called Falling Leaves. "We will not attack their soldiers," he explained to his commanders. "We will attack their minds. Every on this planet will go to sleep tonight knowing that we could have killed them, that we chose not to, that next time we might choose differently." The operation began at midnight. Special forces teams from 12 different countries moved at exactly the same moment. They had trained together for 2 months, learning to work as one unit despite speaking different languages. They entered every major base on the peninsula. They did not kill anyone. That was not the point. Instead, they left messages. In the quarters of base commanders, they placed photographs, pictures of the commanders sleeping, taken from inside their own rooms. Next to each photograph was a note in the language. "We were here. We could have ended you. We chose mercy. This time." In the barracks, they rearranged personal items, moved weapons from one bed to another, left human military patches on pillows, small things that showed that they were never truly safe. In the armory of one base, they found a massive plasma cannon, the most powerful weapon the aliens had deployed on Earth. They could not destroy it without making noise. So instead, they removed one small piece from inside it, a piece that made the weapon useless. They left the piece on the commander's desk with a note. "You might need this." When the sun rose, the forces discovered what had happened. The reaction was exactly what Colonel Shin had predicted. Panic. Soldiers who had spent their lives being brave suddenly could not stop shaking. Officers who had commanded armies began crying like children. 18 high-ranking requested immediate transfer off Earth. When their requests were, 5 of them killed themselves rather than spend another night on the planet. Commander received reports of what happened from his flagship. He had not slept properly in weeks. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw shadows moving. He heard sounds that were not there. He had started keeping guards inside his personal quarters, watching him while he slept. It was not enough. He still did not feel safe. "We cannot win this war," he admitted to himself for the first time. The words felt like poison in his mouth. He had never said them before. He had never even thought them. But they were true. The humans were not defeating them through strength. They were defeating them through fear. Every day, the alien soldiers became more frightened. Every night, they became more paranoid. Their once mighty army was turning into a collection of scared creatures who could barely function. General O watched intelligence reports from her underground command center. She saw the same thing saw. The enemy was breaking. "How much longer?" asked Major, who had become her most trusted field commander. "Not long now," she replied. "A few more weeks, maybe a month, then we end this." She turned to look at the young officer. He had aged 10 years in 6 months. They all had. "Prepare your team," she said. "When the time comes, you will lead the final mission." Nodded, he had known this moment was coming. He had trained his entire life for it. Somewhere out in space, the High Council was having another emergency meeting. The topic was simple: should they continue the invasion or retreat? For the first time in 3,000 years, the mighty empire was considering surrender. And in the mountains of Korea, humanity's most lethal soldiers waited in the shadows, ready to finish what they had started. The planetary command ship sat in what used to be a valley in the northern part of the peninsula. It was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long, shaped like a giant blade thrust into the earth. From here, Commander controlled every alien soldier on the planet. From here, all orders flowed. From here, the invasion was supposed to have succeeded months ago. Instead, it had become a prison. Had not left the ship in 3 months. He was afraid of what waited outside. He was afraid of the shadows, the silence, the invisible death that came without warning. He was afraid of humans. The High Council had sent a special visitor to investigate the failure. Inquisitor was not a soldier. He was something worse. He was the one who asked questions when things went wrong, the one who assigned blame, the one who ended careers and sometimes lives. "Explain," demanded, sitting across from in the command center. His eyes were cold, judging. "Explain how the greatest military force in the galaxy has been stopped by a species that discovered space travel only 2 centuries ago." Took a deep breath. He had prepared for this conversation for weeks. "They do not fight the way other species fight," he began. "Every world we have conquered had armies. Soldiers who stood in lines, who defended positions, who fought face to face. Humans have those too, but they also have something else, something we have never encountered." He activated a holographic display showing images collected over 6 months of war. "They call them special forces. Elite warriors trained not to win battles but to make battles impossible. They do not defend territory. They do not attack in formations. They simply exist, everywhere and nowhere, killing our soldiers one by one until there are none left." Watched the images with growing discomfort. He saw soldiers dying without ever seeing their attackers. He saw bases penetrated without a single alarm triggered. He saw messages left in commanders' quarters, proving that humans could reach anyone, anywhere, anytime. "Our soldiers are afraid," continued. "Not cautious, not careful, truly afraid. They cannot sleep. They cannot function. They see death in every shadow. And the worst part is they are right to be afraid. The humans really are in every shadow. They really could kill any of us at any moment." He looked directly at the Inquisitor. "We have lost nearly 500,000 soldiers. We have gained almost nothing. And every day the humans grow stronger while we grow weaker. This war cannot be won. Not by us. Not against them." Sat in silence for a long moment. Then he stood up. "The High Council will not accept retreat," he said. "Find a way to win or face the consequences." He left without another word. Sat alone in the command center, staring at maps that showed nothing but failure. He had 100,000 soldiers left. The humans had perhaps 5,000 special forces operators. By any normal measure, he should be winning. But this was not a normal war. Far away, in an underground bunker that did not exist on any map, Major gathered his team for the final mission. "The target is the command ship," he explained, pointing at a holographic model they had built from months of intelligence gathering. "Commander is inside. So is every important officer in the invasion force. We take the ship. We end the war." Lieutenant Park studied the model carefully. She had led the reconnaissance missions that made this moment possible. She knew the ship's layout better than the aliens who lived in it. 50 operators, she said, against thousands of guards, inside their most secure location. "Yes," replied. "Impossible odds." "Also yes." Smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "I like impossible odds." The mission took 3 weeks to execute. They could not simply attack the ship. It was too well defended. Instead, they had to get close, slowly, carefully, without being detected. They moved at night, covering only a few kilometers each day. They hid in holes they dug themselves, covering them with dirt and branches. They ate cold food and drank water collected from streams. They did not speak, did not make fires, did not exist. They never saw them coming. When they reached the ship, they found something interesting. The perimeter guards were not patrolling properly. They stayed close to their posts, huddled together, jumping at every sound. Fear had made them useless. Sergeant Major Han was the oldest member of the assault team. At 47, he should have been training younger soldiers, not crawling through mud in the middle of the night. But he had insisted on being part of this mission. "One last job," he had told General O, "then I retire for real." He was the first one through the ship's outer defenses. There was a maintenance hatch that they had stopped checking weeks ago. Too dangerous, too scary. The humans might be waiting there. The humans were waiting there, but not the way they feared. Open the hatch from inside. One by one, the 50 operators entered the ship. The assault began at exactly 300 hours local time. The humans moved through the ship like water flowing through cracks in a wall. They knew every corridor, every room, every defensive position. They had studied this ship for months. They never had a chance. The first guards died silently, taken down with knives before they could raise an alarm. The next group died almost as quietly, killed by suppressed weapons that made no more noise than a whisper. By the time the ship's internal alarms finally activated, half the command staff was already dead. Major led the team that reached the main command center. The door was locked, reinforced, supposedly impossible to breach. Placed a small device on the lock. 10 seconds later, the door slid open. Inside, Commander waited with his personal guard. 20 of the biggest, strongest soldiers surrounded him, weapons ready. They had known this moment might come. They had prepared for it. It did not matter. The fight lasted less than 2 minutes. They were stronger, but strength meant nothing in close quarters against enemies who had trained for this exact situation their entire lives. The humans moved like dancers, like shadows, like death itself given form. When it was over, stood alone. His guards lay dead around him. His weapon was still in his hand, but he had not fired a single shot. There had been no time, no opportunity, no chance. Stood before him, weapon raised but not firing. You could have destroyed us from orbit, the Major said quietly. Burned our entire planet. Why did you not? His hands were shaking. He had faced death many times in his long career, but never like this, never against enemies he could not understand. It is not our way, he replied. We conquer, we do not destroy. There is no glory in burning an empty world. Nodded slowly. Then you understand nothing about us, he said. We do not care about glory, we care about protecting our home, and we will do anything, sacrifice anything, become anything to do it. He lowered his weapon slightly. The war is over. You will surrender. You will take your soldiers and leave our planet. You will never return. Looked at the human standing before him, so small, so fragile looking, and yet somehow the most terrifying thing he had ever faced. And if I refuse? His expression did not change. Then we will kill every on this planet, one by one, night after night, until none remain, and then we will find your home world and do the same there. He was not bluffing, could see it in his eyes. This human would do exactly what he promised. These humans would never stop, never surrender, never give up. For the first time in his life, Commander, Conqueror of 40 worlds, dropped his weapon. I surrender, he said. The war was over. The broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. It traveled at faster-than-light speeds through communication networks that connected thousands of worlds. Every species that had ever heard of the Empire stopped what they were doing and watched. The footage showed Commander, the legendary conqueror of 40 worlds, standing in his own command center with his hands raised in surrender. Before him stood a human who barely reached his chest. Around them lay the bodies of the finest soldiers the Empire had ever produced. Then came the voice of General O, speaking to the galaxy from a planet that was supposed to have been conquered in a month. People of the stars, she said, her voice calm and steady, the invasion of Earth is over. The forces have surrendered. Their soldiers will be returned to their home world unharmed. We ask for nothing in exchange. No territory, no resources, no tribute. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a warning that echoed across 1,000,000 worlds. We want only one thing: leave our world in peace. Do not return. Do not send others to try what you have failed to do. We did not choose this war, but we finished it. Remember that. The fleet left Earth within hours of the surrender. 100,000 soldiers loaded onto transport ships and departed, leaving behind only their dead. They did not look back. They did not speak of what had happened. Many of them would never speak of it at all. On the home world, the High Council met in emergency session. Inquisitor delivered his report. "The humans have a type of warrior we have never encountered," he explained. "They are called Special Forces. They are trained from youth to fight in ways that break every rule of warfare we understand. They do not seek glory. They do not fight fairly. They exist only to win by any means necessary." He showed footage captured during the war. Shadows moving through darkness. Soldiers dying without seeing their killers. Messages left in the most secure locations, proving that nowhere was safe. "We lost 500,000 soldiers," continued. "The humans lost fewer than 1,000. Our technology meant nothing against their tactics. Our strength meant nothing against their skill. Our numbers meant nothing against their ability to be everywhere and nowhere at once." High Commander leaned forward. "What do you recommend?" Was silent for a long moment. "I recommend we never return to that planet. I recommend we spread word to every species in the galaxy. Earth is not to be touched. The humans are not to be provoked, because if anyone invades their world again, they will face the same fate we did." He looked around the table at the most powerful leaders in the Empire. "They will face the ghosts." On Earth, the world slowly began to heal. Cities were rebuilt. Families mourned their dead. Life continued as it always does. But things had changed forever. Captain Park, now promoted to Major, was given command of a new unit. Its mission was to train humanity's first interstellar special operations force. Soldiers from every nation volunteered, the best of the best, ready to learn the skills that had saved their planet. "Out there," told her first class of recruits, pointing at the stars visible through the training facility's windows, "are thousands of species. Most of them now know about us. Most of them are afraid. That fear will keep us safe for a while, but not forever. Someday, someone will test us again." She looked at the young faces before her. "When that day comes, you will be ready. You will be the shadows that protect our world. You will be the ghosts that haunt our enemies' nightmares. You will be humanity's shield against the darkness." Sergeant Major Han kept his promise. 3 months after the war ended, he retired for the final time. He returned to a small village in the mountains where he had grown up. He rebuilt his father's old restaurant, a simple place that served traditional food to travelers passing through. He never spoke about his service unless someone asked directly, and even then he said very little, just smiled and changed the subject. But sometimes, late at night, travelers would stop at his restaurant and notice something strange. The old man who ran the place moved differently than other people, quieter, smoother. His eyes were always watching, always aware, and there was something in those eyes that made people uncomfortable, though they could not say why. Those who knew understood. This quiet old man with the gentle smile had once been a ghost. He had walked through shadows and brought death to creatures twice his size. He had helped save his entire species. Now he served soup and rice to tired travelers, and that was enough. Colonel Shin visited the memorial every month. It had been built on the spot where the first troops had landed, where the war had begun. Thousands of names were carved into black stone, soldiers who had given their lives to protect their home. His family's names were there too, his wife, his daughters, his parents. They had not been soldiers, they had just been ordinary people in the wrong place at the wrong time. He traced their names with his fingers, as he always did. "We won," he said quietly. "I wish you could have seen it." Major had been offered promotions, medals, positions of power. He had turned them all down. Instead, he asked for a simple assignment, training the next generation of Special Forces operators. "The war taught me something," he explained to General O when she asked why. "Our strength does not come from technology or numbers. It comes from the men and women who choose to stand between their world and the darkness. I want to make more of them. I want to make sure we are never unprepared again." Now he stood before a new class of recruits, young men and women from every corner of Earth. They looked at him with respect, even awe. They had heard the stories. Everyone had heard the stories. "You are here because you want to be the best," told them. "But being the best is not enough. You must also be willing to sacrifice everything. Your comfort, your safety, your identity. You must become shadows. You must become ghosts." He paused, looking at each face in turn. "The galaxy is watching us now. They have seen what we can do. Some of them will try to befriend us. Some of them will try to use us. Some of them will wait and plan and someday try to destroy us." His voice hardened. "We will be ready for all of them." Far away, in cantinas and military academies and council chambers across the galaxy, stories spread. Stories of a small blue planet that had defeated the mighty empire. Stories of soldiers who moved like shadows, who killed like ghosts, who could not be seen, could not be stopped, could not be broken. Other species began to study humans with new interest. They examined human history and found thousands of years of warfare. They learned about human special forces, about the training, the tactics, the mindset, and they began to understand why they had failed. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They did not have the best technology or the largest population. But they had something else, something that had evolved over millions of years of surviving on a dangerous world, something that made them more dangerous than any species the galaxy had ever known. They had the will to do whatever was necessary to protect their own. And now the entire galaxy knew it. On a quiet night on Earth, Major stood alone on a hilltop, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there were thousands of civilizations, billions of beings, endless possibilities and dangers. Humanity had taken its first step onto the galactic stage. They had announced their presence in the most dramatic way possible, by defeating an empire. What came next was uncertain. There would be challenges, threats, maybe more wars, but was not afraid. He had seen what humanity could do when pushed to the limit. He had seen ordinary men and women become legends. He smiled slightly, thinking of all the young soldiers he would train in the years to come. They would carry on the tradition. They would become the next generation of ghosts. And if anyone else ever made the mistake of challenging humanity's most lethal units, they would learn the same lesson they had learned. Some species are not meant to be conquered. Some planets are not meant to be invaded. And some soldiers are not meant to be challenged. The stars were cold and distant, but they no longer seemed quite so threatening. Because now, somewhere in the darkness, human ghosts were watching. And they always would be.